Bendy Lone Wolf is an upcoming rebrand and update for Boris in the Dark Survival. Lone Wolf will have Steam achievements, a hard mode, it will be more roguelike, and it will have a proper story conclusion, which is what we'll be discussing today. Boris in the Dark Survival as it stands has a couple small endings, but nothing too significant for the story. So I've been thinking, what could the proper story conclusion for this game be? And I've come up with two ideas for what the endings could be. I think the first and most obvious choice is an ending connecting back to Bendy and the Ink Machine. In Bendy and the Ink Machine, after escaping the Ink Demon in Chapter 2, Henry meets Boris, and they team up in Chapter 3. A very obvious way for this game to end would be having Henry meet Boris, connecting back to the original game and tying up the story leading into Bendy and the Ink Machine. Some evidence pointing towards this is that the original end of the game, we hear the door from Chapter 1 opening, signifying that Henry has entered the studio. So in the events of Bendy Lone Wolf, Henry is already going through his journey from Bendy and the Ink Machine, meaning that it's very likely he can meet Boris. And since Bendy in the Dark Revival gave us an actual Henry model, it's totally possible we could see him in the game's ending. I think this is a very obvious ending to go with, considering how it ties back to the original game. But I also thought of something more unique and creative. In Boris in the Dark Survival, you can find a secret audio log from Wilson, who later on becomes the main villain in Bendy in the Dark Revival. This audio log confirms that he's already begun investigating the cycle at this point. So it's possible by the events of Lone Wolf, Wilson has already tampered with the cycle and changed the natural course of things from Bendy and the Ink Machine. This means that maybe instead of Boris meeting Henry, things will play out differently since Wilson has messed with the cycle. It's possible that maybe we'll even see the Keepers in this game. They're Wilson's creation, so if he is messing with the cycle, it's possible they already exist. In Bendy in the Dark Revival, there's a secret where you can see Boris in the vents of the Gent Workshop, possibly implying we'll go there in Bendy Lone Wolf. The archives in Bendy in the Dark Revival also mention Boris is experiencing a dark survival of his own during the events of the story, further implying that Lone Wolf will be connected to Dark Revival. I think the Gent Workshop could be a cool area in Lone Wolf, and I'd be interested to see the Keepers as enemies. Bendy Lone Wolf tying into Dark Revival's story could be really interesting, and could help show us how Wilson took over the cycle. While this does sound really interesting, will this be the case? I'm not really sure. I think the first ending with Boris meeting Henry is really the obvious route to go with, but I think it'd be really interesting if they tied the ending into Bendy in the Dark Revival. Regardless of the case, I'm really excited to see what they add with Bendy Lone Wolf. Boris in the Dark Survival was already a really good game, despite being so small. The game knew what it wanted to do and excelled at that. So I'm really excited to see how they expand upon this game, and maybe we'll finally see what's in those mystery boxes. I also really hope they clear up Boris's true identity. When Bendy and the Ink Machine was first coming out, people speculated that Boris the Wolf was actually Wally Franks. Chapter 5 seems to confirm that Wally is still alive, so I don't think that's very likely. In the books, it confirmed that Buddy was Boris's true identity, but they've since then been confirmed as non-canon, so I don't really know what to think about that. Hopefully in Lone Wolf, we can finally get an answer to who Boris was before becoming an ink creature. I also have more Bendy videos on my channel if you're a fan of the series, and I have a variety of content on the way. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss those. If you want to help support future videos, please consider donating to our Ko-Fi or subscribing to a monthly membership for early access to exclusive content. Thanks again for watching, and make sure to check out some of my other content.